Spartans! What is your profession? This is Sparta!
What is going on, everybody? We're back at it with another stream. So, if it's your first time joining with us, or you coming before, please hit the like button. Of course, hit the share and subscribe. So, today, we're talking about, isn't it worth getting, is it worth getting married today, in this decade we live in? The reason I want to pick the topic because it came in my head the other day. I was co-streaming on BMUs with Grace, and the idea popped in my head because it was a little bit of an argument on the stream, like a dating or a marriage is not real. I personally disagree with the person who said that. Not because I don't like them or anything like that. I just personally disagree that because I still believe in the old school marriage. Call me a fool, call me weird, call me whatever you want. But I still believe in that marriage is the ultimate goal. Having kids is the ultimate goal. A marriage is the ultimate goal. Why do I feel that? I grew up in a old school Orthodox family. By that said, we believe as Christians and Orthodox, marriage is the end game for any kind of dating thing. You don't date just to get laid. You don't date for just fun. You don't date that. You date because you want to get married eventually. And that's, I feel, is the right thing to do. With marriage comes kids, house, the 9 yards. Great. Say that. Is marriage the end goal? I think so. So, let's get into my notes here very fast. And hopefully by the time I get into my open dialogue, my guys will be coming up. And we're going to have a great conversation tonight. Hopefully not too heated. So, what are the emotional and physical benefits? Marriage offers provided of sense and stability and emotional stable have shown that marriage involves tens of report and highlight level of happiness and life compassionate commitment and a sense of achievement. So, I think we've all been into some type of a marriage, type of a long relationship at this point, and we all need it at some point. So, give me 1 second, guys, because my thing is active. I gotta turn my camera off for a minute here. Where is it? There we go. All right, so let me fix my camera really fast because something's going on. As I'm saying this, I'm gonna continue going through the dialogue as I'm going, fixing this little issue I'm having, but nothing major. Anyway, so every relationship has a happy moment, the honeymoon phase. Let's say it. The honeymoon phase is a very, very important part of any relationship. So I personally agree with it. So, by that said, the emotional benefit is the outgoing part. And of course, we have our unofficial cheerleader. Stacy's in the house. And she says, "Hey, good evening. Please to hit and prescribe a common arrival. Please, please do." You know what? I've got to send a link to this one person. Don't know he's available, but I know he's not actually. He's at the movies with his soon to be wife, King, and Michelle, our future newlyweds soon. Just saying. I'm just gonna share my opinion. I think they're gonna get married very, very soon. Uh, uh huh. That's weird. So if you guys still see me live, please hit the one button because I'm having an error on my side. I'll make sure everything is going correctly. So if you guys do me that favor, hit the one, make sure everything's running perfectly. Let's see if I can fix this. See what this error is because I have never seen this. This is very odd. And it's not coming from my streaming stuff, it's coming directly from YouTube. So I am still live. So okay, I'm gonna ignore that for now and keep going because it doesn't seem something that is affecting me personally. Anyway, yeah, I was saying, what was I left off? Okay, so the emotional part of being in a relationship is somebody to talk to, somebody to cry to, somebody to be there with you. It's more than just a companion. It is a lifetime partner. You guys go with the bad, the good, all of it. Doesn't matter what you go through. You guys are together no matter what. So, that is one. Marriage brings values, benefits, tax breaks, and partnership. A financial marriage commitment can be pool a pool of richness. Financially, this does help when you have somebody to split the bills with, somebody who can help you with it, somebody who can be there for you to support you. Except being on one person, you split it. For example, okay, I pay the mortgage, you pay the electric and the heating. I'm using examples, of course. That is a big benefit. Any benefits like that, it will take a lot of stress off one person. Except you're a bachelor, paying your bill by yourself, a single one, whatever. That can be very stressful. Rent is expensive these days. Let's be honest. It's easier to pay with your wife, not a partner, a wife, because she has the same goals as you do. Family support. That's my favorite one. Family support. Marriage can send a family bound and provide a board support network. It often brings together extended family, caring, lovely, laughter, commitment of support. It can also bring benefits of raising children, staying often bring stability of home emotional. That's very important. So let's take this one by one. So the family part. Obviously, when you get married, the point is to start your own family. Everybody eventually is going to start their own family. It's not if you do, it's when you do. It's part of the game. It's just a part of human evolution. But the benefits of starting your own family is it brings, you know, support network. The support network is the extended family. Your in-laws, your cousins, your sister-in-laws, whatever. That is the boundaries that you cannot have by yourself. It's something very, very hard to do by yourself. Nearly impossible. The benefits also is raising children in a stable home environment. That is very important in the world we're living now. I'll tell you why. If you are a parent that is single and separated, it's not the same as raising the kids together. You have your ways, he has his ways. Or she has her ways and you have your ways. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that. You can't do it. What I'm saying it can be better if you do it together versus separately. That's all I'm saying. It has been proven studies it's better to do it together. So the next one is commitment and personal growth. The commitment involved in a marriage can emotional personal growth and mutual support is pushing goals and overcome challenges. And we got Mariana saying, "Hey, what's up? Welcome to the stream, Mariana." So this is also important in its own way. Let me finish the quote first. In it often leads to strong commitment, skills, and deep understanding between partners. So here's the thing with that. Commitment involves marriage. We already know that. If when you start a marriage, getting into a marriage, the commitment is a big, 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 big thing. You have to be loyal, respectful, yada, yada, yada. So, by that said, the growth of mutual support. Let's say your goal is to run your own business one day, to open several chains of restaurants. And let's use that for example, because I'm a chef. Or you want to open a gym, or whatever your life goal is. Your spouse, your husband, your wife, you have in your life, it's going to support those goals, support that dream of yours. Because without that support, the backbone, you don't have anything. You're just wasting your time and breath. It often leads to strong commitment and skills and deep understanding between each others. Let's think about it and break it down. Strong commitment. Without the strong commitment to each other, you go buy a house, start a business, or whatever your commitment is not there. The deep understanding of each partner, what their needs are. You have to be non-selfish person. Majorin said that to me a while back on the stream when he's recently married. And that is a very, very big thing. You need to be not selfish in a relationship. Sometimes you can't help it be selfish because you just how you were all these years. So, financial and lead risks. Divorce can be, and we gotta stay a comment really fast before I move on. Absolutely agree. If you don't have each other's back, then why be together? That is a good question, Stacey. Let me ask you this question because I know you've been through your own headaches. What is the point if you don't have each other's backs? There is no point. I know support is a huge thing in my book. People go ups and downs all the time, but are you ready to have that person in your life to support you? That is the question of the night. Are you ready? I have two of you guys in here right now, so answer that question. Are you guys ready to have that support in each other's lives? So back to what I was saying. Divorce can be a financial and emotional drain. Agree. The legend, leg, 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 legility? I think I pronounced that. Process can be complex and costly. Agree on that too. Produce leads to significant financial loss. Agree on that too. Marriage involves legal. Not even gonna bother to pronounce that word because I can't even pronounce it. I don't even know what that is. That can be completely financial, deeply, and destiny marketing. So let's break the first one. Divorce. Divorce rate is very high right now. Let's be honest. It's been very high, more and more every year. And higher it gets, more pricier it gets. People are getting divorced like fast as they can change your goddamn underwear. Here's my issue with the whole divorce thing. I blame social media. The reason I blame social media is you see this perfect couple on this one screen. I have two screens. On this one screen, and then the second screen, just you guys. But you're not that. That's one. The second thing I blame on divorce, to cheat or to replace your significant one, it's very, very easy now these days. You are literally one click away. That's all it takes. One lousy click to go on these dating sites or whatever and cheat or find someone new very easily. And it's sad because that's how I personally think divorce rate went up so high, because of all these marriages and all that stuff. Like, I don't personally agree with it. Personally, opinion, of course. If you cannot stick it through the rough, when it gets really bad, can you even handle it? Again, that's my personal opinion. Before I move on, guys, I'm going to drop the link in. And whoever wants to join me tonight, please feel free to join this conversation. I would love to hear you guys' opinions, thoughts, and everything. So the link is in the chat. Please join me for a great conversation tonight. So back to what I was saying. Now, let's talk about the actual married couple that stayed together. That is very important. The couple that stayed together. Financially, they grew together. They improved themselves. Bought a house, nice cars, maybe start a business, bought a couple houses, and they rented them out. Whatever the case is, financially, they're better. The next one is personal freedom and independence. See, this is a tricky one. I'll tell you what. I hear this from a lot of women say, I'm an independent woman. Okay. But you're the first one to run to us as men saying, hey, I need help change this fucking light bulb. Oh, hey, I need help, doing a tune-up on my car. Oh, hey, I need this, I need that. Why run to us if you don't need us? Just saying. So, what was it? Personal freedom. Okay, some values in their independence and personal. Hang on a second, guys. I want to get this guy in here because he is one of. Let me adjust this stuff here. 1 second here, because I gotta shrink this. Here we go. get him in here because he is on season 58. I believe he keeps saying he is our president. Sound effects still not working, guys, so bear with me for a minute. And 3, 2, 1. There we go. Mr. President, welcome on board. How are you today, Paul?
Well, it's good, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm good. I can hear nice and clear. How are you tonight?
Things are good. Things are good.
So, hours of which
I'm literally just jumping on, so I wasn't sure what the topic was. So I'm literally just jumping on board. So
it's fine because I just started my open dialogue. It's no big deal. We're talking about is it worth getting married today? And I know you're on season, what, 23, 24, you keep saying?
season 28.
28. So you've been married for 28 years. That's a long goddamn time.
Well, I've been married for 27, but this is season 28.
Okay.
So I say that for a specific reason because
Okay.
I don't value necessarily what came before. I only work at one season at a time. So this is my 28th season, and so I live in the present rather than dwelling on the glory years of the past.
Okay. Now, your open statement. As somebody who's been married, when you hear this, is it worth getting married today? What is the first thing that pops in your head?
To the right person, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one is the right person, but that starts with you. Are you the right person? A lot of people focus so much on finding the right person. A lot of people don't necessarily focus on being the right person. But either way, the right people, when they're together, it is a very powerful institution that has a lot of benefit for the individuals involved, the family, and the legacies that come after that. Yes, it's a beautiful thing. But what are you bringing to the situation? Are you marriageable, and how serious are you putting into finding someone who you can rock with? I mean, I think that's I think that's the piece that and I certainly think that's harder today, to find someone who's going to be on your same page. You may have to go through some numbers, but at the same time, that's what I had to do. I didn't just find my wife just like that. I went through a lot of numbers, and at the time, I used a very somewhat radical approach to how I found my wife, but it was basically a process of elimination. And she was the one. I didn't say at the time that she was the one, but she was one. And I just went for it. I wasn't going to stretch it out longer than I needed to. I found somebody who I felt fit about 80% of what I was looking for. And so that's been it.
Before I ask you my next question, Stacey has a comment. If the right person is right, loyal and commitment, and of course someone to pin up with your quirks. And that's a good statement because think about it. Nobody's perfect. You have quirks. Something that I know is, obviously I know you probably have something that knows your wife all the time. I remember when we were hanging out together, first one of the comments you said to me was like, "Man, if I bring one more shirt home, my wife is gonna kill me." And that's probably one of your quirks. Like you like collecting shirts. There's nothing bad with that. It just says one of you.
Right. But it's hypocritical at the same time because she never said something about getting another pair of shoes or whatever. So it kind of goes both ways. I was just saying that, but again, we both deal with stuff. And if I did bring another shirt home, she's not going to say much. So again, I didn't make it. It's not like it's World War III if I come home with another shirt. But the idea is that I certainly agree with that. That that person is going to be one who can certainly deal with your eccentricities and things of that nature. But again, I still go back to the person. What are you willing to deal with? And so I think that the conversation you have to have an internal conversation with yourself, which is what I had, and I had to be honest about who I was, my status in life, what I wanted. I don't think a lot of people put in that work to really find out whether and then come to the conclusion or not is marriage for you. And I certainly agree that I think for some people marriage is not for them. I've come to accept that. but has the person done the work in a true and honest evaluation of themselves, not hyping themselves up, but the real on who they are to come to that conclusion? I don't think a lot of people go through that. I just don't.
I agree 100% what you're saying. So the only thing I'm gonna follow up with that, I remember you saying a couple times that on a bunch of streams, you had a manual almost you used to give out, and this is what
Well, it was a profile. So it started out with just to kind of get go back a bit. I come from a family of dysfunctional marriages. So my parents basically split up. They never divorced because my parents' generation they didn't divorce, but they just split. So my dad he went off. He had other girlfriends and stuff. My mom never got with anybody, but but the D word was just not something that you did. That was sacred. You might not be living with the person, but you never went through the process. So, but they basically split since I was born. And my older sisters, they had failed marriages. I think my older sister had a marriage, but it was kind of tumultuous. They kind of finally got it together at some point, but it was kind of rocky. And there was some family situation that sort of put stress on that relationship, part of the family dynamic that we were dealing with. I won't go into details there, but there was just a lot of stresses. And my other two siblings, they had early divorces. One got remarried, and she's been married over 30 years. But the first one, she only married once, but never found marriage again. And so at the time, so I didn't have a lot of role models to necessarily say, yeah, this is a cool thing to do. And I was one of those people who got to a point where I was like, I didn't think marriage was going to be for me because I didn't see anything to model after. But it was through seeing another culture and how they operated. It was actually, I got to give a lot of credit to the Asian Indians because I saw, arranged marriages for the first time. And that definitely changed my perspective in terms of, I thought you had to find someone and fall in love and whatnot. And them, they were just getting, find somebody and the love grows later. So, just seeing kind of how that worked. And then I got around some Christian people who seemed to have some good marriages. At least they were saying, at least they were preaching such. And so that stimulated in me a desire to get married. The Christian part also comes in because I became a Christian relatively late. I became a Christian at 24. So when I went in sincerely. And I knew one of the things that I wasn't going to do was I wasn't going to have sex outside of marriage. So that already created a need, so to speak, because I did not have the gift of singleness. So I wasn't going to be the Apostle Paul, even though my name is Paul. So my thing was I needed a wife. It just became a logical problem for me that, I can't commit myself to celibacy. So I'm going to need a wife. Now, if I'm going to need a wife, then I need to be a husband. And so then I started asking around, okay, what does a husband do? Or what goes into being a husband? And also finding out what goes into being a wife. And so a gentleman told me to, kind of write down, he was big on goal setting. So he said, write down what you want, specific, what do you want in a wife? What do you want in your career? What do you want in your whatever? So I took that process on relatively seriously, and I kind of came up with a list, and it was like sort of like a bulleted list. But then I figured, well, if I want to share this with somebody, there was no context to it. So I felt that I needed to add context, and so it really became an outline to a document that I just fleshed out over time. But that's what I was talking about earlier. It was that internal work that I had to do, who I was, what did I value, and what did I want. Also a bit about what I didn't want. And what happened also as I fleshed, I didn't just write it in one night. This came over the course of several months because I was dating actively at the time. And I went through all kinds of sources. If it wasn't someone I met or someone I was introduced to, we didn't have internet back then. So we had, there was like the radio stations, they had call-in lines where you can put in like a little leave a voicemail message saying, hey, Paul 28 or whatever my age was, looking for marriage, and hey,
like speed dating was right.
No, it was not even that. It was a call in. You just left a voicemail message, and then you had a box, and then you would follow call into it. And they say, oh, you got 3 messages. And the ladies, you would go in, and if she said, hey, heard what you had to say or whatever, hey, I mentioned it, here's my number. And then that would lead to dates. So I had about 3 or 4 dates through that interface. And with each date, all of them bombed out. But it was good because I knew, kind of what I didn't want. So the big thing with all 3 of those dates, I said I was a Christian in the message. But again, there was no context. And I went out with 4 very different type of quote unquote Christian people. And I realized that I need to really define what that is, because Christianity is somewhat of a big tent. I know you come from an Orthodox tradition, which has been pretty consistent for forever. But in the Protestant tradition, there's kind of been like an explosion of, all different types of belief systems and whatnot. So I really had to define and really flesh out what I defined as a Christian, or what I was looking for, because you can be a Christian, but they talk about not being unequally yoked. And a lot of people just say, well, a Christian should marry a non-Christian, but it goes deeper than that. A Catholic and a Assemblies of God, that may not go very well. So again, your values really need to be lined up. And so, like, if you go to church with them, and if you're not feeling that spirit or that service or whatever, then that might not be a good move. Because again, I was definitely wanting to be with someone I can worship with. Like, we can't go to the same church together, then that's going to be an issue. So I spent time fleshing that out, and then I decided, well, I'll just flesh out the rest of it in terms of physical characteristics, temperament, and career stuff, and just all sort of things. But at the same time, I also shared about me, because I was like, if I'm gonna say this list of requirements that I want, I need to she's gonna be reading this. I kind of started figuring in mind, well, she's gonna be reading it, so I'm sure she's gonna want something to know about me. And like I said, this is before the internet, so I figured, okay, well, I need to have some description too in terms of what I believe. So as a Christian, what do I believe as a Christian? What are my values as a Christian person? And then I just fleshed out, some of my likes, my dislikes, my, things I like to do, and it just became this 4-page essay that initially I gave, shared with some family members and whatnot, say, hey, what do you think about this or whatever? And then it just sort of, and that was interesting, because I had some aunts. I had one aunt in particular. She's like, we need to talk. And so she was kind of concerned about me when I wrote it. And then, but it had a conversation, which was great, because the document itself became something to talk about on a date. So when I started actually giving it out and sending it to different people and getting responses back, when I went on a date with somebody, it was like, okay, well, what did you mean on page 3, paragraph 4 about this and that? That was a great way to have a conversation. I mean, so, the worst dates that go on is, well, you don't have anything to talk about. So, so it was an instant conversation starter. I was able to, really flesh out. They got to get to know me a bit more. And, so I enjoyed the process. And the crazy thing about it was kind of going, again, email, I think, was just coming on board. Email back then, email was like, 100 characters long with the bangs and stuff like that. But it got around. And I remember there was one exchange where someone reached out to me and I asked how they got it. They got it from someone who I didn't know, who got it from someone who I didn't know, who got it faxed. Someone actually faxed it to somebody. So it was kind of going layers deep with it. And so I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. And then I just got bolder with it, where it really started to take off, where I would literally carry copies with me everywhere I went. So I would be in a restaurant, on a story. I was with some coworkers. We were in a restaurant and whatnot. I had some copies with me. We were talking about the document. There was a older black couple sitting at the table sort of next to us. And I just got up and I just went over to them. I said, excuse me, my name is Paul Bennett and I'm looking for a wife. And here's a document. And I had my phone number on it, and like I said, the email that we had at the time. I think Hotmail might have just launched at that time or something. And I said, I'm looking for a wife. And here's a document that, kind of explains what I'm looking for, a little bit about me. If you know anybody who fits that description, I don't know, you might have a daughter. Again, they were an older couple. So I'm thinking, okay, you might have a daughter, you might have a niece or somebody at your church, whatever it was, here it is. And I would just, give it to them, shake their hand, and went back to my table with my other mate. So I was to say I was intentional was an understatement. I just had anywhere I was where I felt I could be around people. If I liked the person I was talking to, especially like I said, if they were older, I look for people in their 40s and 50s and 60s who, you know, again, a daughter, a niece, whatever. That's what I was going after. I wasn't going to clubs. I think I was beyond the club scene at that point. I wasn't going to bars and things of that nature. You know, I was just working through, you know, networking and just, you know, I just had this boldness where I was just going to, you know, sow seeds. I read that parable Jesus talked about, you know, you sow on the thorny soil and the hard soil and, you know, all those, I just put it out there. So I lost count of how many documents that I gave out, how many people I've talked to. But it was going to do one thing or another. They were either going to say this guy is nuts and, you know, don't even call that guy back or whatever. Or they were, if they were intrigued enough to, you know, call me and set up a date or at least have a conversation that maybe lead to an actual meeting, that was fine. But one way or the other, I was willing to filter out. And I was like, if I got to go through 100 to find one, I was willing to do that. And so when I did meet my wife, now we met platonically. It was like through a work sort of thing. But certainly when it came down to when I approached her for a date, and this was actually a prompting of one of our coworkers, I said to her, you know, you know, yes, I'd like to take you out, but here, you might want to read this first. So it's just so that we don't waste any time, whatever. Here, read this. And she was like, I can get with this. It wasn't that big a deal. It was like, look, I can rock with this. It led to conversation. We had a lot of, I mean, we talked probably for 2 weeks, I think, before we even went out on a date, just because our schedules weren't vibing and whatnot. But we talked almost every night. And so by the time we got to the first date, we had a pretty good sense of what we were wanting. And she was of the opinion, it's like, look, you know, here's a guy who's he wants to get married. He's a Christian, he's celibate, and he wants to get married. And for her, that was like, I don't meet too many brothers who are that, you know, dedicated. So she took the time to see and invest more, and the rest is history. We were married after our first date. We were married 6 months later. 10 months later. But I knew I was going to marry her after 4. So it didn't take long once that was there, but it was definitely meant to be a filter. And, you know, again, I was willing to put that kind of time in, and it became very impersonal. So again, it's like doing sales cold calls. You know what I mean? You can't be sensitive when you go through that stuff. And I just developed this sort of cold call type of attitude. If you didn't like it, that's fine. That's the best answer. No sales. They say no is a good answer. And I just adopted that when I started the process, and you know, the rest is history.
So I want to welcome Lost to the panel. Lost, what's going on, my brother?
What's happening, man? How you doing?
Pretty good.
Good to see you, Lost. Good to see you.
Good to see you guys. I've been watching the show from the beginning, man. And you were asking, is it worth it? Yeah, it's worth it, man. Especially if you're with the right person, man. You know what I'm saying? It's the development that I don't think people talk to about enough. You know what I'm saying? It's growing together and experiencing life together that I think a lot of people don't put a lot of emphasis on. You know, I tell this story all the time. I said my grandfather, you know, after this is like maybe about a year after my dad passed away, and he sat me and my brothers down. He asked us, you know, why do you think people get married? And I said, because they're in love. He was like, wrong. He said, people get married to have the tough times to go through with. He said, life is a long journey. And if you can find somebody that'll stay in that boat with you, no matter what, I said, that's what it's all about. And you know what the thing about it is, I watched him go through his situation where he died and his wife was right there by his side. You know what I mean? And then when she left, and it was something else. It was like she left shortly after he left. You know, that was on my dad's side. And the exact same thing happened on my mom's side. My granddad passed away. He was like 93 years old. And 6 months later, grandmother passed right behind him. So they fulfilled their duty, man. But to see them go through life, to watch them as long as I've watched them, how they dealt with each other, how they talked to each other, you know what I'm saying? That type of thing. It wasn't this overly complicated thing. And it was the simple stuff. You know, my grandfather would bring my grandmother her plate, you know what I'm saying, when she couldn't cook anymore. And I also watched her bring him his plate, you know, from time to time. It's the little simple stuff, the small acts of respect and love and kindness is what I picked up from both of my grandparents, which I thought was amazing. And I don't think a lot of times people give that type of reverence to marriage. You know what I'm saying? It's the small things. It's not the big things. It's not the big house, because both my grandparents had a small house. There's an old blues song that said, "The smaller the place, the bigger the party." I believe that because on my mom's side of the family, they had 12 kids, including my grandmother and grandfather living in a 2-bedroom house. I'm like, how y'all do that? But I can still look back and look at the way that these people grew up because they had to learn how to be unselfish. It was the crucible of learning how to deal with people in a fair way. Now, did they always get along? No, because we've heard plenty of stories at Thanksgiving about them going at each other and stuff like that. But at the same time, I can still see the love. They still go out from time to time. They hang out for each other's birthdays. My mom was in Georgia this weekend. I didn't even know it. She would go hang out with my aunt. You know what I'm saying? It's the little small stuff, that matters. So I think family is one of the things that makes us better people. It really does. It's the thing that draws into us, that thing in us that makes us want to be better people, even though we don't deserve it sometimes. So I think that family is a thing that we probably need to inspect a little deeper than we normally do, because I promise you, deep down in that recipe that we call love, there's this thing called patience. And I don't think we have a lot of it today. So basically, I think, is marriage worth it? Absolutely. Absolutely. It makes us better people.
I totally agree with you. Now, let's bring our oldest member of our group. I am, of course, talking about Chef Payne. And I think we just lost Chef Payne for a minute here. I think he's having... Oh, yeah, he got kicked off for some reason. Let's hit this one of his comic. I got to move Paul a little bit over. Here we go. Marriage are not like our grandparents anymore. And I totally agree with that. People are married a few years and then divorce. Okay, I agree on both of them. What do you guys say about that?
That's because, I'll put it like this. There's this story that I have memorized, and it's called Cake Less Eggs Ain't Cake. The reason why our marriages aren't the same as our grandparents is because we don't apply the same ingredients. You know what I'm saying? You ever made a cake, man, with no eggs in it? That ain't exactly cake now, is it?
Yeah. Well, some of my friends, they were, like I said, they were straight up vegans, and
Right.
they brought a vegan cake, and I was like, there's just something missing.
That's not cake.
Yeah, that was definitely.
Trust me, I ate vegan cake, and I know if I should have put my gun and shoot the goddamn fucking thing or throw it out a goddamn window.
Well, see, the thing about it is we don't put the same ingredients that we put in our relationships that they did. You have to think about it, man. They put in time. Time. You can't cheat time. You know what I mean? In this busy world, we're always trying to catch up with the latest social media fad or hanging out with our friends or whatever. But man, think about it. Back in the day, our grandparents used to hold hands for hours on end. You know what I'm saying? They used to go by the riverside and just talked, till the lights came on. They had to ask for permission, to talk to each other. My grandfather had to ask, my great grandfather's permission to talk to his daughter. You know what I'm saying? Those are the type of things that are missing in our relationship. It's the reverence for each other. So my thing is this: if you want that relationship to be like your grandparents, I think we have to start with reverence and respect for one another and each other's time. You know, don't treat somebody like an option.
Mhm.
Treat them like that's the last thing smoking up out of town, and the train ain't coming back. And if you ain't getting on board, you sure gonna miss out. And
Bingo.
I assure you, your
So
mindset on whether or not you want to, be with this person will change. You'll put in a little bit more effort.
I'm glad you say this, Paul. Excuse me. I'm glad you say this because my first question is to both of you guys is, over the years, the history that we know of marriage, how did has changed to what it is now and when it was before? Like the way with Paul's marriage was, my parents, even our parents, even our great parents, and like how has it evolved to what it is now? That is almost absolutely
Well,
nothing.
I don't know if that's necessarily the right way to look at it. I think you need to look at history. I made this comment on Tuesday, and the more I think about it, the more I stand by it. Past is prologue. And I think if you look at cultures around the world where you've had decline in society or certainly declines in marriage, a lot of it has to do with the advancement of the country. The more advanced the country becomes, when you talk about third world, second world, first world, one, in a lot of those countries, they become less religious,
Hmm.
less traditional, and marriage tends to fall off. The number of children you have tends to fall off. And again, we're seeing it certainly today in a lot of economies, a lot of Asian economies. We're seeing the economic um, problems that causes when you don't promote family or having multiple children. And so you can go back to any, and think Brother Arpane, he talked about, there was this book that he had picked up and that explored like all these ancient societies and what happened to them. And amongst them was the marriage rates, or the desire for marriage seemed to fall off. People get more hedonistic or selfish or whatever. And
Hmm.
ultimately it has an effect on that society going forward. So I don't think it's a new phenomenon. That's like, what's happening now. Why is now is the time? I think it's almost that you can almost just pin it to the cycle of a nation, um, that gets to a point where we've certainly, with technology and whatnot, we've lessened the need for another body. We let a lot of automation do a lot of things for us that we didn't do before. Or you can certainly, I think, Loss, you made the point on Tuesday about back in the day, your father would take you and your brothers out or whatnot, and y'all learn to build the deck. But now it's like everyone is trying to make the money so they can pay someone else to do it. So again, you're not getting that buildup of men to be able to do certain things, or women in learning in the kitchen how to do certain things or whatever. So a lot of that tradition gets taken off as the society, you know, becomes more, liberal, less religious. People live more hedonistically, more for self and individual, especially in America. I mean, I can't speak for every country, but there's certainly that independence, that American independent mindset that everybody championed for all those decades. I think it's ultimately catching up because, you know, that independence, we weren't, I think as human beings, we were never meant to be independent. We were meant to be interdependent. You know, there's never a society that said, like, I don't need you. And so when a society starts to get there where men and women say, we don't need each other anymore, then yeah, that's going to be problematic. And, but I don't, like I said, I don't think it's a new problem. It's been a problem that has repeated itself throughout human history. And we might be on the verge of that again, unless people, decide to make a radical move to embrace, some more traditional values and institutions that have led to the building of society. That's the paradox of it. It's like all these people, and I keep going back to that story I've shared so many times. That Sierra Leone family, all those kids love the culture. They loved the environment, having all their cousins there, and it was almost like a mini family reunion. And the music and the interactions. Hey, this is great. Yeah, I love but they don't want to propagate it. So the thing that benefited you, you don't want to be a contributor to it, paying it forward. And I'm seeing that with a lot of my friends who have kids. Again, they came from an immigrant background. They came from India. They came from Africa. And they're just like, look, that marriage, I may get married one day, maybe 30, 35. I may have one kid, but we're not trying to be, to have, a young person talk about, yeah, I want 3, 4 kids. That's like unheard of. I mean, it's just not something that people look forward to. Oh, I got to keep my body. That's going to wreck my body, whatever. So yeah, but it's not a new thing.
Yeah,
It's just the
man,
history
chopped out for
repeating.
me.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I got enough
Really
feed
fast
because I'm
before
on my
we continue
phone or
this question,
not.
I
I
want to get
haven't heard you
Payne
gluten
in
at
this.
all.
Payne, what's going on, my brother? Payne? I don't think Payne knows how to use his phone really well, but
I think he has a little bit of a delay.
yeah, I understand why. He's keep going in and out. So, till we get Payne back, Lois, go ahead.
Well, here's my thing, man. I think that we come from a history of people who had a lack of at some point in time, and what happens is it creates this mindset of scarcity, as if I'm not going to get it back again. We have a tendency to overcompensate. You know what I mean? Like, say, for instance, I used to hear parents grow up and they used to say, I'm going to give my kids the things that my parents could never give me. I want them to have a better life than me. And I always thought about that. Why would you mess up the secret recipe? You know what I'm saying? If it made you who you were and you had to struggle a little bit to be a little tougher, then my thing is this: why won't you give your kids the same gift? It's one thing to set them up with knowledge and wisdom or whatever, but to shorten start their delivery or their growth for delivery because you want them to have things, I think we probably starting off on the wrong foot. And what happens is that actually grows in their adulthood where they're more and more materialistic. I saw one lady who was bragging about she bought a house as a single lady. She bought a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house. And it's just her. Why?
It's kind of overkill.
It's not necessary. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't make sense. So it's the mentality of the lack of that makes people to overcompensate by buying things, So I think it's real important that when you vet somebody for marriage, you need to find out what their core values are, because people will tell you anything just to get a ring. You know what I'm saying? And you got to make sure that family has got to be at the core, because that's all marriage is. Marriage is the stage for family. And if they just showed up for, a good time and not a long time, you can be setting yourself up for failure. So that's the reason why you have to have these conversations. Ask them, hey, what's important to you? That's how I look at it. You got to have deeper conversations versus what's your favorite color, and do you like, chicken parmesan and foolishness like that, and Alfredo. You know what I'm saying? Weird, silly stuff like that.
And I totally agree. I'm not sure what's going on with Payne. I see him in the background, but he's not coming through for some reason. I'm not sure because he's using.
He's probably on his cell phone, man. Sometimes if
I
you're not.
I thought I heard mention that he was on his cell phone.
Yeah, I can hear him. Okay. No, you're fine. You're
Payne,
fine.
on your cell phone, can you connect? Listen, on your cell phone, can you connect to your Wi-Fi instead of your 5G? I think that may help.
Oh, it definitely will. You're breaking up really bad, Payne. Like if you can, we lost you again.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, so till we figure out what's going on with Payne, let's get to our next question. Emotional and physical impact. Who wants to take this first?
I think we should
In
let
what
Mr. Bennett
context?
do physical.
I'm just
Yes.
where he's going. I don't know where he goes. He goes left sometimes. So what context is it? Emotional and physical?
Both. Any way you want to take it. You can talk about bedroom, impact, or physical, like, like everyday. Just you just need somebody to get a hug and tell you can get through this. This is you're on the floor. This is your opinion.
All right. I see that you left me a little leeway here, so I'll just take one at a time. On the
Oh, by the
emotional
way, before
end,
we go ahead, I'm sorry, Paul. I did activate the green screen. If you want to go ahead and turn it on, go ahead. I forgot to
oh, no
turn
problem.
on before. I'm sorry about that. It's my fault.
No problem. No problem. As far as the emotional end, I would say this: it allowed me to grow emotionally. Um, I think that when I got married initially, again, I got married out of lust primarily, and early on, especially when I had my first couple of kids, was feeling a little bit ignored, feeling not that my needs, because I had for 3 years, I had my wife all to myself, and then we had 3 babies in 3 years. So, definitely I wasn't feeling like my needs were being met. So, that showed me a lot in terms of how immature I was. And I, realized that I had to grow out of my selfishness and be more understanding of what she was going through. I mean, and because she was a full time, she was staying at home until the kids all got into first grade. So, so it definitely, having the role, it allowed me to grow into just a better, more mature person, a more emotionally stable person, having the responsibility to step up and to, you know, be more of a thermostat versus a thermometer. I think certainly it helped me to mature, having that responsibility. I could have shrunk in it. I could have been all in my feelings, but I realized that I had to mature and grow up. And so on that end, I became much more emotionally stable in the relationship as a result. Now, on the physical end, of course, I mean, obviously, not having to spend time out there chasing tail or spending unnecessary money on dating and all those kind of things. Yeah, I think there was certainly a practical side to that. The security that you had, that you weren't going to be having any babies that you didn't want, or picking up diseases that you didn't want. I mean, all those things I think is kind of, for I would hope for a lot of people be standard equipment. That certainly those were good benefits. For the most part, we did hit a little bit of a bump when my wife went through menopause. That was definitely something that I wasn't expecting, because for the most part, I'm still the same person as I was almost 30 years ago. I mean, I'm still viral. But for her, it was a major, change, and you also had to modulate the changes, how she was feeling about herself as we had our kids. Because I mean, she was very, very somewhat heroic about her body. She was a hot little thing, at least in her mind. But having those 3 kids, and again, 3 kids in 3 years, you didn't necessarily give your body the time to get back to. You can kind of get it back almost after the first one, but when you keep having them, she gained some weight that even to this day she hasn't really quite been able to take off, and it affected her self-image a bit. But again, me thinking in my emotional energy, or saying, look, you my wife, you're supposed to have intimacy with me and things of that nature and whatnot. But again, not being understanding of, I'm not feeling so hot about myself. And so so again, I had to be more understanding, in getting her through that, getting her through menopause. Again, I think with most women, they're much more emotional when it comes to their body and their body image, and how that affects their drive, their libido, just a lot of things there. So again, becoming more patient, more understanding, and working back to, because like I said, we did hit a wall, working back to a compromise, if you will. I know a lot of people in this spaces don't like to hear the word compromise, but we worked out an agreement. and that we have a regular amount of intimacy that is, it'll never satisfy me because, look, like I said, I'm the same dude I was 30 years ago, so I can go. I'm all day, every day, twice on Sunday. I'm just still that same
With
dude.
your little him pill, of course.
Okay, whatever. But nevertheless, though, I mean, she doesn't have that virility that I do, but I get enough for it, and she knows that. And I may have to, like Arpine, I got to get her out of the house if I want those extra bonus sessions or whatever. I got to get her out of the house. You know what I mean? Then it's a little bit different. And I'm cool with it. She knows she understands the assignment. We go into this place or whatever. She understands the assignment. We'll go then. But I cut her a break, when we're at home, because But overall, it's been a very fulfilling, healthy a part of our lives. I think we realize that it is a lot of times people say it's the glue that keeps the relationship together. Take that wherever you want it. But it is what it's that bond. It's that bonding. I feel close. I can feel connected. When we don't have it, I feel less connected to her. And it's weird, because there have been times where we had to take, for various reasons, a couple of weeks off. And it's weird because when we do reconnect, it's kind of awkward the first time. I can't explain it. It's not like I'm just starving to get it, but it's just awkward. But then once we get back on the regular, it's just we're just closer. So for me, it's still a very integral part of our relationship that keeps things that keeps things smooth and going. And so it's been certainly a blessing. I'm not I don't keep a log. I can't keep count of how many times we've done it over the years. I don't know, 10,000 times. I have no idea. Guys throw out numbers. I have no idea, but it's been good.
Well, that's it. Before we get to you, Lost, let's just get Payne in here really fast before his phone take a shit on him again. Payne, we're talking about, and I know that you're probably one of the most.
I've heard a lot. I've heard a lot.
So what's your opinion?
All you gentlemen can hit me. Well, first of all, with the marriage thing, I'm still a proponent for marriage. There's no way I couldn't be. But I do understand the new times. But Mr. Bennett, I hear what you're talking about, man. You're right on point. Listen, you guys have to be, especially you. No, not especially. On Monday, it's so funny that you guys are talking about this. You know what I'm going to give to Black Man Unfiltered? My title for Monday is that the hardest thing in marriage is staying monogamous. And I have some stuff to talk about on that. And when I say hardest, it's not like it's impossible. It's the choice that you make to do it. And because I have a couple of, I guess, psychologists and stuff like that, and we'll do a video where it says both men and women are, as a human animal species, that we both like to be monogamous because of certain anthropological reasons and biological reasons. Mm-hmm. But for both of us, it's equivalent for us to want to have other mates. And the fact that we don't do it is chemical and some other things, and the reasons why women do it and the reason why men do it, just on the surface. And she tries to keep it real professional. It's a really interesting conversation. But anyway, so back to the marriage. I hear what Mr. Bennett, when you said viral, I think you meant virile. You're still virile, right? So I said, wait a minute, viral. Okay, it's virile anyway, but still. So I agree. I agree with everything you guys said. It's a big, good conversation. I'm an advocate for marriage, and I'm thinking that one of the reasons why it doesn't work in today's as much as it should is because people ain't willing to do the commitment that it brings, and not because they're not willing to do it just on the surface. I just don't think they understand it. I think because of programming, people don't understand that when you make a choice, and I think the word choice is significant, and choice. And when you vow one person to another, you make a choice. Like when you see the old ancient movies, when you vow, your word is everything. If you break that vow, I mean, we're talking about death. And a lot of people think they could just say shit and it doesn't really matter. And that's not really true. When you marry somebody, you're saying something that is bigger than you and bigger than your spouse. And a lot of people just can't understand how the gravity of that. That's why regular boyfriend and girlfriend relationships are just absolute bullshit. Because everybody knows the back door is still open.
Mhm.
So the real commitment ain't there. And there's two things that I think about people, no matter how well you vet, there's two things, and you can look up the difference because the words are real subtle. It's propensity and proclivity. And some of those things you can't really see, no matter how great your vetting process is, until you're really committed. When you're not really committed, some of those things are not as important. So when you're really committed and you actually move in with somebody, they might exhibit some things that you couldn't ferret out while you're just dating or courting, because the commitment ain't there. So it's always, is their proclivity or their propensity to do something greater than the vows you took? And you got to weigh those things. And for the most part, you'll find out that they're not, if you're really serious about that person and serious about you. And I don't think a lot of people have that kind of shit in them today, because we're so easy to, move. If I'm not okay, the Tia Mowry thing is actually a case study. She left a man and her kids because she wasn't happy. Some of the most frivolous shit in the whole world. And she's more unhappy now than she ever was. And we can see it. Everybody can see. She can fake it all she wants. And so, I mean, I'm a proponent for marriage, but, I don't really push it on people. I said, listen, if you ain't willing to do what it takes to go through the peaks, the valleys and stuff, just don't get married. Stop messing with our statistics. Stop
Leave marriage to the professionals. You know what I'm saying?
That's right. Stop messing about statistics. If you just be boyfriend and girlfriend and do whatever the hell you're doing, man, because don't get married and then 2 weeks later, oh, you know what? He had I don't like the way his toenails are growing. Just dumb shit. So that's where I'll just land it. I didn't have much to say. I heard you guys talking. It's a good conversation though. But I don't believe marriage is that hard. I think the only thing in marriage, the hardest thing in marriage, and I'm just boiling it down to the brass tacks, is that you can't do what you want to do without guilt. Everything else
Chef,
is,
I have a question for you.
yeah.
As our ancient grandpa on his channel, out of respect, of course, do you feel the decade that we're in now with, you're going to go like single, like not married, you're going to keep that out there right now, the internet, dating online has affected marriages now?
Oh, yeah. I mean, see, listen, there's people who play with social media, and then there's people who use it for their own purposes. And the puppet masters understand the power of propaganda and everything else. And I think we're all subject to it. And I think that some people are more susceptible to it than others. And unfortunately for us as black men, I mean, we got enough black men who are susceptible. But I hate to say this because it sounds like I'm pointing fingers, but black women are overly susceptible to programming, as long as it makes them feel good, because they've been beat down so much that when they hear something good, they gravitate towards it, whether it's good for them or not, because it's something that propels them. Like, for example, I'm the only person who'll say this, and it could be a whole story on itself. I don't want to dwell on it. I think Black Girl Magic was the nail in the coffin. That whole
Really?
push of Black Girl Magic, not because we don't need girls to be propelled, but they were being propelled at the expense of black boys and black men. And they gravitated towards, and just forgot about their sons and everything else, because money, accolades, and everything just went towards them. And now DEI and all that shit has nothing to do with black men. It has to do with white women and black women. And to tell you the truth, black women are on par with white women in terms of preferential treatment. Nobody wants to say that in terms of jobs and shit like that. They have exactly. They're mayors and everything else. So I'm not saying it's bad, but the reasons why it's that way is bad, right? Because it doesn't matter. I mean, I don't mind women achieving goals, but when they achieve those goals, they kind of forget their infrastructure. And your man is your infrastructure, right? And you leave us behind. Now you're out there uncovered. And when I say uncovered, not because you need a man to take care of you, but I think women don't understand that if you don't have somebody thinking about you, worrying about you, trying to find out whether you're safe, you're out there alone, right? And some women understand that, some women don't, you know. So that's where we are. So when I say black girl magic, you know, it was the idea was cool on the surface, but the insidious nature of it was meant to elevate black women and de-escalate black boys and men. And we see it play out all over the place. And in terms of not only in terms of money, in terms of accolades, in terms of education, in terms of everything else. You know, because black men have never been on the forefront of anybody's push. Everything we got as black men, we had to fight for. Who gave us anything ever? Maybe a couple of years of affirmative action back in the day until the white women took it over. You know, and by the way, I'm going to say this, I'm going to shut up. You know, everybody doesn't realize that the beginnings of affirmative action is actually a reparations program. And some people took advantage of it. Then the white women said, wait a minute. White men and white women said, you know what? We need to take that shit over. So they took it over, and it's been decades since a black man really benefited from affirmative action or DEI. And I'm going to say this. One last thing, I promise. Everything that we have, you, Mr. Bennett, you, Lit, and everything, even you, Grillman, everything we have, we earn. Don't let nobody tell you that shit that somebody gave us something. That's bullshit. Everything that we achieve, we earn. Nobody. When's the last time anybody gave you anything? You got a helping hand and stuff like that because you find nice people, white, black, or other things. But nobody's giving us nothing. Nothing.
I agree.
I'll land it there.
One thing I want to add, what you were just saying to nobody's giving anything, is you're going to have bumps in the roads. It's up to you to get up and ram the shit out of it and move on. You're going to fall down. You have to get up, no matter what. If anybody disagrees, please say so or hold your peace.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's it. I didn't want to derail the conversation, but you know, I believe in marriage and all that good stuff. But I'm not so sure people are capable of it the way it needs to be. And I'd rather them stay unmarried than married and just mess it up. They're messing up our statistics. I'm tired of it.
So I want to go back to Lost for a second, and then, hey, no going over, because this next question is really important. I want your opinion on it. Lost, go for it.
What's the question?
Where did I leave off? The history of marriage. How much has changed, in your opinion, into now?
Marriage hasn't changed, the people have. You know what I'm saying? If we're being honest.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? The purpose of marriage has never changed.
Mm-hmm.
The definition of marriage has never changed. It's us that's changed. You know? It was just like our Payne was telling a minute ago about how sometimes our women can be susceptible to influence. I'm gonna tell you why. Think about it, man. Up until the 90s, we used to write love songs to our women. You know, we used to tell them how beautiful they were. You know, how gorgeous they were. You know what I'm saying? That type of thing. And for some strange reason, we just stopped doing it. So they started looking for validation in all the wrong places. You know, I heard a old story a long time ago. He said, if your dog growls at you, that means somebody else feeding them. Well, guess what? Somebody else has been feeding our women. That's the reason why they don't heed to our call. You know, there's a psychological thing. But my thing is this, I think we're smarter than that. I think what happens is we're too busy trying to buy things to self-medicate to tell us we are somebody. You know, in the 60s and the 70s, James Brown had a saying. He said, say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud. That had nothing to do with, you know, get a bag. You know what I'm saying? It was never none of that. It was more of a mind as a terrible thing to waste. You see what I'm saying? That's what I came up off of. You know, we prided ourselves on intelligence and ingenuity, you know, and scholarship, you know, that type of thing, and playing fair and dealing fair and doing fair business. That's what I grew up off of. You know what I'm saying? And now the people who are trying to emulate what they saw are not putting the exact same thing into marriages. I had a conversation with my mom a long time ago. She I was telling my mom, I said, it might be a while before I get married. She said, I know. She said, because you know how to read people too good. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes I think you might be smarter than your own good. I said, yeah. I said, the last girl I was dating, she wanted to know how come I wouldn't date her. And I told her it's because you don't particularly like men. And she looked at me like I was crazy. I was like, yeah, think about it. I said, I've been around you long enough to know and watch how you use men, how you talk about them, how you how you look at them differently. There's no reverence and no respect. Every time a man comes around you, he has to be doing something for you. And I said, I don't want to sign up for nothing like that because what happens is you will work a man to the ground and to the bone and won't even say thank you. So that is one of the things. The last person I talked to, I was like, no, you ain't finna get me like that. You know, I'm built off something different. You know, we take care of each other on our side of the woods. You know, we respect each other on our side of the woods. We talk and hold each other in high esteem. You know, we edify each other. You know, and what I'm seeing from what you've done, you don't particularly like men. You know, I wonder where they come from because does it come from the fact that you probably picked some guys who had some problems and you wanted to go in and fix them and save them, and they kind of gave you the raw end of the deal. You see what I'm saying? So my thing is I shouldn't have to pay for that because you weren't smart enough to see past their BS. You know what I'm saying? I always know when people come for me versus what I provide. The last conversation I had with a chick, I said, do you love me or do you love what I do for you? You know what she said? She said, that's not a fair question. I said, you just answered it. Good day. So at the end of the day, pause, you know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, you know, you can't get over on everybody. You know what I'm saying? And I sure ain't the one that you finna get over on me. You know, I spent enough time developing myself and developing my mind and my acumen to the point where I'm very good at reading people. When you're in sales, that's what you do. You already know what that person came for when they walked through the door. It's up to you to convince them that they made the right choice. You see what I'm saying? And I think that's how it is in most marriages. You have to convince them, hey, you made the right choice. Every day when you wake up, you know, for your wife, you have to convince her that, yes, she made the right choice. And vice versa. She needs to do the same. You know, I made the right choice. I hear our pain and Mr. Bennett brag on their wives all the time. You know why? Because they made the right choice. You see what I'm saying? And that's what I desire. I want to make sure that I make the right choice, but I've done the work. I'm just waiting for somebody else to do their part too. I'm ready.
I'm just
But my
shocked.
thing is this.
I'm just shocked when you just said she couldn't be honest with you. It says it was more you being a ATM machine for her than a someone loving you. Like that's
Right.
sad. To be honest,
It
no
is.
offense.
Yeah. But all my dates, I ask them those trick questions all the time. You know, one time I asked this chick, I asked her, let me ask you a question. Is it better to ask for permission or to ask for forgiveness? You know what she said? Ask for forgiveness. I said, next.
Right.
Next.
But a lot of the questions that you're asking, Loss, I think a lot of that has to do with, again, I think value systems for sure, but
Right.
what is the society teaching? Because you get a lot of mixed messages on that. Like the question of does she love you or what you do?
Right.
There's a teaching that goes on that says that basically a person is defined by what they do, not necessarily by who they are.
Right.
So again, I think just as people were having this conversation, especially in America, like what is my worth?
Right.
Who am I as a person?
Right.
And a lot of us, we might not have gotten that conversation when we were younger. Some of us, we had to come into adulthood before we started having, or we might have been operating on it's what I do until we came to a point, whether it be spiritually or otherwise, to say, no, it's who I am. Like God loves us as Christians, and God loves us as we are, you know.
Right.
So I think a lot of this has to do with what this overall society is teaching about what is valuable, what to value. And then I think that just trickles down to then what people are being taught, whether it be in their homes or through social media or anything else. But it definitely seems like, you know, the prevailing teaching now is, you know, judge a person by what they do And then we get into these conversations about respect. See, I'm kind of an outlier to an extent because I believe that respect is given, it's not earned. Because I look at people in terms of, look, you are made in the image of God. So there's a certain level of respect that I grant you because of that. Now you can lose it, you can earn more, you can lose it, but there's a certain level. But you have this idea is like, I don't have to respect you until you've done something. So that then builds in people this idea that, of your worth being tied to what you do. And so, if both, I think men and women to an extent are getting that wrong, or at least that's the conversation we need to have. What does it mean by worth? And sometimes it may take a while. Like especially with my Indian friends, they'll be straight up and they say, I didn't love you when we first got married. Because again, a lot of these marriages were arranged. Like I said, the love came later. Like, that you may not get to that point where it says, I love you until years into the relationship. It could be operating on a sort of a functional level for a number of years until you get to a point where, because a lot of times you don't know who a person is until you see them in crisis situation, in situations where their character is tested. And the way you come out of that, that's I think a lot of times where people say, you know what? I like you. I said, or I love you for being that. When there's a decision that can be made and you can make one decision or another, there's the easy path and then there's the harder path, but the harder path is the right one. And when a person sees you making those kind of choices and decisions over time, they tend to start to value you over time.
I was going to ask you to build on that, Mr. Bennett. Build on that point, because that's a real important point that you just made. Because about the love, marriage for love and all that, that's a more recent phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Than the old phenomenon of people, blending families together and learning to love each other through shared experiences and commitment.
Yeah.
Not only to your family or to, if you were religious, you did it to God, you did it to your family, and you had a commitment to making sure it worked, not only for you, because there was something bigger at stake. And so there was, like you said, certain challenges, either made or natural, that made you have to get close with that person because you're having children and you're doing all those things. But what builds the camaraderie between two people who were arranged in a marriage? And a lot of them worked. I know some recent arranged marriage. So there's some deeper, we don't have to do it now, but there's deeper discussion to say you don't have to fall in love first, but you could be committed to a common cause and find it.
But that was, like I said, that was a paradigm that I never saw. Like I said, I met one of my best friends. Again, I met him in like 30 years ago. And he told me he was getting married, and I was a little offended because, oh, you never even told me you had a girlfriend. And he said, oh, I don't even know who I'm marrying yet, but I'm going to India, because it was down to like the final selection, right? So he had a couple just to, final interviews. It was like, and that just, so I was like, wait a minute, you're going to have to break this down to me in terms of how that worked. But then again, I looked at, if you look at history, to your earlier point, most marriages were either a betrothal, which means you were
spoken for,
birth, or arranged, or something of that nature, or it was just a practical, it was a transaction. If I wanted a wife for my son, I would come to you, the father of the woman, and says, look, my son needs he's interested in your daughter or whatever. Here we make here's a dowry, and we work out the terms and conditions and whatnot. And again, like when Tina said, what's love got to do with it? I mean, it was definitely, it wasn't predicated, but you're right. Over the last maybe 100 years with this idea of romanticism, or putting the emotions up front, I think that's definitely changed how people view relationships. You got to have this spark. All the stars have to align. And you have to have. I love when Lit plays his sparkle.
That's right. That's right. Got to have it.
Like, you got to have all of that. But some of these marriages, like, look, I wasn't even liking them like that, but you know, over time, you just cleave together, so yeah, so I think it's definitely a recent thing, but like I said, as far as human history, this is very recent on
Right.
the timeline in terms of how people view relationships these days.
I'm gonna explain to you why I handcrafted that question and why it's genius. The reason why I asked that question is I'm looking for a value system. You see what I'm saying?
Mm,
My whole thing is this: if I ask you, will you ask? I asked one lady, I'm asking you for forgiveness or permission. If she says forgiveness, that's the person that's gonna be teaching my kids
hmm
ethics. You see what I'm saying?
yeah,
I'm pushing that to the side. Do you love me or do you love what I do for you? Well, when you get up in age, like I've told you about my grandfather when he couldn't do for himself no more,
yeah, so
that's
absolutely.
important to me because I'm already committed. I'm gonna do what I said I was gonna do. If something
Hmm
happens to you, I'm gonna take care of you. And if it gets to the point where I can't do for you, I gotta know you're gonna be there. You see what I'm
hmm
saying? And the
yeah,
reason why I phrased the question versus logic versus emotions is because I need to know who trained you. I need to know who you listen to. I need to know who you honor. You know what I'm saying? Where you getting your information from. Most times, most women who have fathers in their lives, they're pretty stable, man. You know, they like your daughters, I'm pretty sure that based upon what you guys have told me, they come to you guys, they listen to you guys, they honor you. That's how I know for a fact when they come with their husbands or potential husbands, they're going to come and ask you and say, "Hey, what do you think?"
hmm
Because they value what you say. So my thing is this, if she values who I am, she can be able to teach that to my kids. And
right,
then I can actually teach my kids to value other people as well too. So that's
right.
very important.
I
But I
guess
just put it in such a
my
way.
question.
Go ahead.
I got you. So on that, so go back to that. Do they love or do they value you?
Right.
And I'm saying in the course over a courtship,
Right.
how realistic is it that she may know who truly you are,
That's the
the
key.
the the,
That's
the
the key.
man?
Has
Yeah.
she
So
spent enough time with me?
mm,
That's the only way she can know that. You know what I'm saying? What about me interests you? You see what I'm saying?
mhm,
That type of thing. If we were to get married, so to speak, what would you expect? You see what I'm saying? That type of thing. What would I expect if I were married to you? Because
mm,
I think sometimes when we formulate the question in such a way where it's upfront, sometimes people like to tap dance around and put on performances. But if I take marriage off the table and I'm asking you, are you asking for permission or asking for forgiveness? Then at this particular point, I'm gonna get a more real and raw answer without
right.
them trying to say, hey, this is what it is. And I'm gonna ask them, why did you choose that one? Because I need to know what your decision processes looks like. Because
Yeah, I
when
got
two
you.
people come together, we kind of want to be on the same page. You see what I'm saying? I don't want to have
Yeah.
to bump heads with somebody who's dishonest doing business with other people. Because if I get
Right.
married to you, I need to be able to trust you that you're going to be honest around the people that's around me. Because I'm going to bring honest people around you. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? I vet my
Yeah.
friends the same way too. You know?
Hmm.
Right. Right.
So let
The first
me.
now again, the first question, like I said, I can get with the first one especially, and I think it's a great question to ask because that gives you more about again what they were raised with, what their value system is.
Right.
But I'm still thinking the love question though, that one might be a bit harder to decipher, at least not right away. I mean,
If she's honest, she'll say, I don't know yet, and I can take that.
okay,
And I
I
think
got
that's a
you. All
You
right,
very
see what I'm saying?
fair
I'm,
thing
I'm
to
looking
say.
for
yeah, that,
I'm
yeah,
looking for somebody who's thinking. That's the difference. You see what I'm saying?
got you.
I
Yep,
can't be around a woman who's not intelligent.
yep,
That doesn't do anything for me.
yep.
Does that make
You
sense?
yep, yes,
Yeah.
you did. You 100%. You just clarified it. Awesome, awesome.
So the question I want to start with this with Payne because of his ancient experience. Um,
He's
Now,
funny.
Wisdom.
mental health in a relationship, in a
Okay.
marriage, physical, non-physical, whatever. Your opinions.
Uh, in terms of your personal or your spouse, or what are you just in general?
Ours we're talking about marriage, so it'll be on the marriage topic.
Well, listen, mental health, no matter what you do when you get older, if you have certain baggage that's pulling you down, sometimes you never reveal it to anybody. So one of those things is that either you're going to fix it on your own because you know that you're carrying some baggage, or you make an assessment on how it might impact your future relationships, job, and not just relationship. Everything you do depends on what the trauma really is. And sometimes you don't see it, but it manifests itself, and you're unconscious about it. Right? It's either manifests itself subconsciously, unconsciously, or consciously. Right? So I don't know. Everybody has a little bit of trauma that they grew up with. My wife had some, I had some, but it
I
didn't
have some.
impact her. Right? Everybody, if you really think about your whole lifespan, there might have been something that kind of shapes how you think about the world. It doesn't have to be so overly negative, but you can't let it go. Right? Some things you don't really need help for. You grow out of it, you just move forward because you realize that it doesn't have to shape who you are. So there's just so many layers to that question, right? It's just a lot of layers to that. It's just a lot of layers. So I don't want to dodge the question. It just depends on what it is. Now, there's some traumas that women have from a man's perspective that makes them unmarriageable until they fix it. And even that is a danger zone because you never know if it's really ever fixed or not, right? So if you could find it, if you see it, and based on how they move and how they talk, if you're one of those kind of guys that you really have something for that woman, you're going to say, listen, you need some help with this issue, right? I give you some credit for letting me know about it, but we can't go further until you try to fix that. And for some guys, if you got to fix shit like that, you might say, well, you know what? You're just not the person for me because I want somebody more pristine. Just like a person who marries a person with a baby or some other outside kids, right? There's some men, no matter what you say, no matter what you do, no matter how pretty you are, I'm not marrying you because somebody else's kid. So there's some things that disqualify you from some of the guys you want. So it just depends on the kind of guy who has to receive and deal with a person with that kind of trauma, whatever that trauma might be. So mental health is important. So because when we're looking for a mate, a spouse, a wife, since we're men, we're looking for somebody who has the path of least resistance. Who wants to start a marriage with anybody with a lot of baggage. Like if I was a woman, I wouldn't want to marry a convict trying to get a goddamn minimum wage job. You know, so there's a lot of different variables, but the point really is if I really felt for somebody and I knew and I found out they had some kind of mental problem before I moved on, I would say, listen, you got to fix this shit. If not for me, for yourself. You got to fix it because whether we are together or not, if it's that bad and it's impacting how you live. But I wouldn't suggest any guy knowingly marry a woman who has some kind of trauma that's that bad that they need help with until it's fixed. I swear. That's what I would say about that, and you too, and vice versa. I wouldn't advise a woman to marry a man with trauma, especially since we hold trauma and we deal with it a lot different than women do. Because a man with trauma he can't control, it could be a dangerous man.
Hmm.
But Arpan, when you say you've had trauma, and I don't necessarily want you to reveal it or whatever. How do you make the distinction then between somebody who may have come, because especially if you're, like African American or whatever, I mean, you may have dealt with some things. So how do you distinguish that from somebody who hasn't quite dealt with? I think is it more that the person's dealt with the trauma, or they've been able to make the most out of a situation coming from it? So where do you draw that line then between some of these
Yeah,
people?
you said a couple of things. One, if you dealt with it, if you really dealt with it, like me, if I implied that I had a lot of trauma, my only trauma I ever had was I used to be teased incessantly because I had to wear thick glasses.
Mm,
You a young guy coming up and you got Coke bottles on. There was no shortage of there was no shortage of shit people were calling you. You know what I'm
right.
saying? up
Right,
to and including.
but that's from the outside. But then you've
Okay.
also shared in the past, like I think you said your mom died when you were young.
Oh yeah, you know what? Oh yeah, that's a good one. I actually, I was like 8 years old. Actually, I saw a
Yeah,
therapist for that.
really? Back
Yeah,
okay.
it was that bad for me. 'Cause you know what? Because my father wouldn't let me cry.
Mm,
So
I
you
went
couldn't
to the
detox.
funeral. My father would not let me cry at the funeral. I couldn't get it out. And then, so I went to. I mean, we're talking about I was 8 years old, so maybe from 8 to 9, I had therapy. I went to a therapist for that,
mm,
and and helped me deal with that whole thing as a young guy. And once it was done, it was done. I mean, I dealt with it, but then after that, I just moved on.
mm.
So right now, I look at it as, uh, and I have, this is kind of weird, right? If my mother would have lived, I wouldn't be the man I am today.
Mm,
I could be better, I could be worse.
right.
But the path my life took after that
Yeah.
is because she wasn't here. And right now, I'm saying I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying? Because it
Yes, I
would have
do.
been unknown. So yeah, so it's not trauma now. I'm finally I've seen my mother actually die. She had colon cancer. So as a
Mm,
young guy, I used to see the nurse. I didn't know what's going on, but I used to see them coming over, treating her and the pain she went through and all that kind of stuff as a young person. And I wasn't traumatized to the point that it impacted me more that she was gone because I was, a young boy.
mm,
But other than that, once I had to kind of, I guess, mental conversations and stuff to move past it,
yeah.
now it's like more of like a fond memory of a
Mm,
person and a life well lived. It was me and my
right.
brother and all that kind of stuff. And my father got remarried 8 years later.
Mhm,
And not worship him. I admired him because he's a rare man who had two bites at the apple with two great women. My
mm,
mother and my stepmother. I love the hell out of
right.
So
Right.
Pain,
And
I'll
your
be honest with
brother,
you.
he also had the similar. He was able to make it through. Also, or did it affect him differently?
You know what? It did affect him. Not my mother passing away, but he had issues with my father because my father
Mm,
wasn't around as much, and
mm,
my aunt became my guardian. His sister became our guardian,
right.
and that impacted my brother. 'Cause my father was working 16 hours a
Yeah.
day,
Yeah.
and so he couldn't really take us. So we were living in the paternal household with our cousins and our grandmothers and all that shit. And I wouldn't trade that for the world. Now,
Mm,
but he had more problems with my pops, not really malicious, but he kind of held that against him. I never
yeah.
did.
Pain, I'll
Yeah.
I
be
never
honest
did.
with you for a minute here, and I mentioned this before, but this hits a home for me a little bit because my mother suffers from colon cancer stage 3. So when you talk about this, that hits hard for me, very hard. So I can't say I understand how it is, but I kind of relate a little bit, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Paul, you want to go next?
On what specific question?
The question was, let me bring my notes up again. Where is it? I just lost it. Where is it? Mental health. How will mental health impact, in whatever bedroom, non-bedroom, in a marriage, in general?
Well, like I said, it can certainly have impact. I guess that's what I was asking. Is like, is it more about that you have mental health problems, or have you dealt with those problems, or in what ways have you dealt with problems? Um, I've been pretty transparent with my wife also about my family. I mean, that was like part of the dating process. Is look, I got a mom who suffered from paranoid schizophrenia. My dad, he was an interesting guy, hard working guy, but he had, drank a lot. A lot of, she was able to see a lot of, where I came from. I didn't hide that from anyone I dated, quite frankly. Because I'm like, look, because I understand that marriage is not only just about the individuals, it's also about the family that you're married into. And that's why I never had any qualms early on about. I think I met her family pretty early on because she still lived at home at her mom's house. So I met the mom pretty much on the first date. And then over time, the family and whatnot, over the summer cookouts and whatnot. So I had a chance to kind of see that, and that was again intentional. If this is a crazy psycho family or whatever, I got to make a decision that says like, do I want to deal with this on a regular basis? I have kids, and they're gonna be spending the night over here, or is it gonna be something I can deal with? So I think as long as you can be as open as you can about the traumas that you're dealing with, because again, a lot of people have it more than we want to admit. I mean, we talk about mental health in this country with a lack of providers. You got people who are police officers, military people, stuff they see. In fact, one of the clients I was just training tonight, he's a police officer. Is like on any given time, he'll be like, "Yeah, I had to work tonight. Traffic accident, bodies laid out, body parts in the street.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I mean, just a lot of stuff that he's got to encounter on any given day. He can have something. So everybody's dealing with something. But can you be honest? Can you be open? Can you be transparent? And can you take the steps not to certainly inflict, whatever trauma that you had? Uh, can you be mature enough not to inflict that on the persons that are closest to you, and become a danger to them and to your relationship? So I think it's workable, but you really have to be transparent with what's going on. Now, again, if you got schizophrenia, I got to be honest. I mean, just based on what I had to grow up with, if a woman came up and says, "Yes, I'm being treated for paranoid schizophrenia, but I got it under control. Like I'm on my,"
You're
I
running
don't
the
know
other
if I
way.
could rock with that one. That one, I don't know if I could, or bipolar, or some of the more serious ones. I don't know if I'd want to, intentionally walk into a situation like that. Um, because again, because a lot of that stuff tends to manifest under stress. So usually when you're dating someone, you're like on your best behavior, you're looking your best and whatnot. But it's really under pressure is when you really find out what a person's really dealing with. And even with my mom, a lot of her symptoms always manifested when it was under pressure, financial pressure, something, rent wasn't getting paid or something like that. And then it would just spin out of control into this mania that was just unbearable for all my siblings, and we all had to. She's basically had it since my oldest sibling was born, so all my siblings had to deal with her on one. So we can all sit around and share stories, and each one of us has been affected by that in certain ways. So again, we talk. That's why I talk about the relationships that they had. Like I said, a couple of them early on, those relationships didn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know to what degree that dealing with my mom or my dad dynamic affected those relationships early on. But for my older sisters, they were able to kind of come to, and he had trauma. He was a Vietnam guy. So, I mean, I was heard stories. He would wake up crying in the middle of the night from the gun battle stuff, you know. But they were able to reach a point in their relationship where it got, it got good. But early on, the first 5, 6 years or whatever, yeah, it was some stressful times, and that's really where a person who's dealing with those kind of problems, because it's not a matter of if those things will happen; it's a matter of when you're going to encounter stressful situations. Can you deal with it? What steps are you taking to deal with it? Is going to be the issue. So I can't make just a blanket answer to say that don't date somebody who's had mental health issues or whatever, or do date them. But there's levels, and when you talk about the severe ones, the bipolar, the schizophrenias, the whatevers, yeah, those are things that you need to enter lightly or cautiously, because those are the ones that you can you get off your meds, you get out of a situation if the things are not, if your life isn't structured in a very way where you could be functional, it can go left very quickly. So I think a lot of it's going to depend on what it is. But if you're just general stress or anxiety or depression, I think those are things that are workable if the person is actually showing you that they're putting the time into to handle those things effectively.
Before we move on, I want to bring this comment up from Alicia. So, domestic abuse in a marriage. Domestic abuse, I personally believe. I don't. I mean, I don't have any research. I'm not a doctor. It's a form of mental, because he's been through or she's been through something to abuse the other person. So obviously, it's up to you to get out of that. Um, I know you do. You know a little more about this pose than I do. Do you agree with what I'm saying here?
As far as well, I mean, obviously, if a person's being domestically abused, yeah, I mean, I think you need to take the steps to, protect yourself, and if you have children, protect your children. But again, the question that's been certainly raised in the last few years, I remember Kevin Samuels was talking about this, is that at what point are we going to put verbal abuse on the table, especially with men? I mean, so, anytime you hear about that kind of thing, it's like, it's like the man is, beating up his wife or something to that nature. But, a lot of that domestic abuse can be verbal, psychological. And so, to what degree that, both men and women participate. And certainly there's a number of men who actually get physically abused, but the culture is such where it's like, well, look, if you're getting hit on by your wife or whatever, then you're not a man. And this sort of thing, you don't want to admit that or whatever, but there's a section of men out there that are getting physically abused as well. But regardless of the case that you're in, I don't think that can necessarily be tolerated. But yeah, if you have anger management issues, if you have things that where you're only resorting to physical, and a lot of that stuff that's one reason I was never a big fan of corporal punishment, because I've seen that a lot of people, especially back in the day when you would get beat with anything, extension cords or switches or just whatever it was, where you were like bruised. I mean,
A
a
razor
lot of
belt.
people,
A razor belt.
yeah, or them belts that would like back in the day when they were like 3 inches wide. You know what I mean?
A switch.
They had
I
like
mean,
two
A
rows
razor
of
strap.
holes in
A
them.
razor strap. Yep.
yeah,
Suck
yeah,
that booty
exactly.
meat up in
But
that belt.
but my
Exactly.
question
It's
to you,
like it's
Paul,
almost
right
like
now is:
it's like today's
Do
like
you
the wheat belts
feel?
people used to at
Do
the
you
gym.
feel?
So,
Okay, first of all, before I ask you my question, you get more clear. I want to make this statement clear to everybody who's watching this. It doesn't matter, woman or man, it's not right. But
correct.
recent studies has proven men get more abused than women because men don't speak up about it. They're scared. But back to my question, Paul, do you feel in abuse, like say a woman beating a man or a man, whatever, is a form of mental health?
I think it. I think it's safe to say. I would say yes, it is. Again, a person is not able to. Part of mental health is being able to manage your emotions and your actions that come from those emotions. And that person is demonstrating that they have no control over their emotions nor their actions. So yeah, so I would definitely say that's a form of a mental health issue. I mean, again, the times that I've seen it, again, a lot of guys coming back, like I said, law enforcement guys. I'm not. It's not a blanket statement against guys who are in law enforcement or whatever. Military, same thing. But again, I knew a lot of guys when I was growing up came back from Vietnam, maladjusted, couldn't get jobs. The flack that they got from the war from the public. There was being called baby deleter and all that kind of stuff coming back. So it was just just the readjustment getting into society. Or like I said, they came from that background where there wasn't a lot of love or whatever. Your dad barely said 2 words to you, but if you did something wrong, they just came with the slap or the beating or the abuse or whatever. So a lot of people carry that trauma with them into adulthood that never was addressed. So yeah, I would definitely say it's a mental health issue. That being said, though, you still need to protect yourself. So I wouldn't say, oh, well, it's a mental health issue, so I'm going to stay. It's like, look, is this person then going to take responsibility to get themselves the treatment that they need? And can this relationship be restored or reconciled? I mean, that's not it's an explanation. It's a reason, but by no means would it be an excuse for a person to have to live with that, regardless of the cause of it.
And that is good. Go ahead. So, Paul, I'm sorry. Lost. I keep doing it tonight. Lost. You're next, and I want to finish up with one more question. I think and we'll call it a night after that.
Mhm.
Abuse,
No, mental health.
mental health. As far as what?
Again, that's your opinion in a marriage, pretty much. It could be any shape, way, or form. It could be in the bedroom, mental health, outside the bedroom, you just being around each other, whatever. Whatever your opinion is.
That's why you got to spend some time with each other, man. I can't I can't stress that enough, man. You know, the only way you're gonna get enough information if you spend enough time with somebody. And I don't think that people are willing to do that these days. Just they're rolling the dice and getting what they want to get. But I will tell you this though: a couple should make a habit of getting at least a yearly marriage checkup. You know what I'm saying? Just to make sure that everything's on the up and up. You know what I mean? Go in there and get a third party in, because it's one thing to have a spouse who knows how to beautifully manipulate your mind with kind words, you know what I'm saying, and stuff like that, or harsh words. You know, those are the things that people never really catch on to. They always point to the physical abuse, but nobody ever talks about the mental abuse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes people get to the point where they're so eager to people please their spouse, then they learn to overlook some of that stuff, and that's the abuse that rings out. And what happens is, what we don't realize is that sometimes people push folks to the brink. You know what I mean? To the point where it's like, hey, I'm tired of this, and how they deal with it. And I think that's a part of the conversation that we never talk about. We always discuss about, the physical abuse or whatever. What about the mental? What led up to that? You know what I'm saying? Let's be honest about this. Kevin used to say, did you file a police report? And usually 9 times out of 10, they're like, no, see, you just saying stuff to make yourself look good on TV. And I think when we tell stories like that, we do other women a disservice who are actually in trouble, because they're going to think nobody's going to believe them. You see what I'm saying? So that's the reason why I don't believe women should go around telling people that they're men abusing them when they're not. Sometimes he just don't agree with your decision. And since that's the man you chose, guess what? You're going to have to deal with it, But my thing is this: you got to make sure you tell the whole story. That's the reason why I believe in making sure that you get therapy, on a regular basis, because life changes, especially when you start bringing in kids in this world. Just like Paul said in his particular situation, his whole psychology of his wife changed because of the kids showed up. You know what I'm saying? So those are some of the things, especially if you're not equipped to deal with those changes, if you never experienced it, especially being a younger man. And, you may not have been, to college or whatever to understand that these things happen in a marriage. If nobody ever told you, it's foreign to you. So that's the reason why I say make sure that you take therapy and put that in your budget, like you put everything else in your budget, like the light bill, the Netflix or whatever it is. Invest in the maintenance of your relationship, just like you do life insurance or whatever. And that way to keep your marriage on the up and up. Because think about it. Say, for instance, if the husband loses his job and he doesn't feel like a man anymore because he can't bring the money in right away, and the wife all of a sudden starts being verbally abusive to him and saying stuff like, what kind of man are you, Mr. Provider? You know what I'm saying? Get up off of the floor, you're weakling. You know what I'm saying? That type of thing.
Lazy bum.
You're a lazy bum. You know what I'm saying? A man don't work, he don't eat. All that good old stuff. They start pulling the Bible verses out then and start beating you across your head. You know what I'm saying? Never mind them 2 and 3 jobs you've been working the whole time, but hey, it's just one of that one time. Mess around and be out of work for 30 days and see what happens.
Yeah,
You'll start to notice a whole lot of different changes, buddy. You know what I'm saying? So that's the main reason why you have to have at least an annual checkup. Think about it. You go to the doctor to get an annual checkup on your body, right? So why not take your marriage to the doctor and get a checkup? You know what I'm saying? To make sure that you keep everything spicy, keep everything fresh, and keep everything on the up and up, And sometimes your therapist will find things out through conversation that something may not be right. They can watch mannerisms and behaviors, or whether or not that person is actually listening to you or not. They can probably spot early onset Alzheimer's or whatever it is, just because of their specialization in what they do on a regular basis. They'll be like, hey, I noticed that, you weren't really listening while we're in therapy. Is everything okay? I wasn't feeling real good last week. Well, what do you mean? I was a little dehydrated or whatever, and I had this pain in my left arm. Did you go to the doctor? No. I think you need to go because you might have had a light stroke or whatever, especially if your speech is slurred.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason why marriage is important. Your spouse is going to notice stuff on you before you do. You know what I'm saying? Like swollen feet, that could be something that leads to bad kidneys. We got a bad habit of having diabetes, man, in our community. So the minute that something happens and changes, your spouse will know about it before you do generally, because most people are unselfish. They don't look at themselves like that. You see what I'm saying? The little small changes or whatever. So that's the reason why being married is really, really important, to make sure that you guys protect each other from each other. You know what I'm saying? And make sure that you have the correct mental and physical health. And in most cases, spiritual health as well, too. Like we talked about earlier, making sure you guys are on the up and eye to eye when it comes to spirituality. So mental health is a key part of a relationship. I just think we probably need to spend a little bit more money and more time investigating that and making sure that we give that its credence in a relationship, as we should. We check on everything else, so why not have your marriage checked up from time to time?
Right.
I
Now,
will
is
say.
that something?
Go ahead, Paul. Go.
Good.
No, go.
That's something that I think a lot of couples. I would say the majority. I would say 90% of couples, including myself, and certainly my wife and I, an anniversary, we do have sort of like that check, but it's with each other. The idea of going to a professional and sitting down with someone, because again, the minute you use a term like marriage counselor or something, no one looks at that as a wellness check. Now, again, maybe the conversation has to change, or the perception has to change. But a lot of people say, well, why do we got to, we're good. Why do we got to go to a counselor or whatever? So how do we change to introduce that? Because I would be up now. My wife, I don't know how open she would be. She's fairly private. She's like, look, as long as we're good, I'm good. No need for that. So again, in my situation, I know that would be a certain. Now she probably, if I really insist, she'd probably go. If I said, yeah, I think it'd be good if we just check in. But how do we introduce that concept of going to a camp as a wellness check rather than because there's something wrong? Because I think when you say that,
right,
that automatically goes to people's minds.
Well, here's the thing: how you do it is say, look, I want to make sure that I'm being the best husband I can be. You know what I'm saying? Would you mind accompanying me to counseling? You know what I'm saying? And that way, if you have anything you need to get off your chest, you can pretty much talk to the therapist or whatever, just to make sure I'm not leaving the thing out. And just tell us, look, this is to be a once a year type thing because things change. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes I might get stressed out. We might buy a new house. Bills may change. I want to be able to set the atmosphere for us to be able to talk about whatever it is we need to talk about and make it a habit. Because what happens is when you develop a relationship with your therapist, they get to know you on a more intimate level on a regular basis, and they can spot nuances and they can spot changes. You know what I'm saying? Versus somebody that you show up once whenever you have problems, pretty much like your pastor. Your pastor pretty much knows how y'all are. He watches y'all. They trust me. They can spot things from the pulpit,
right?
And especially when you bring it in, you do your spiritual checkup, marriage counseling. When you do that, but therapy is one of those things that should be ongoing. You know what I'm saying? And make it seem like it's a part of your physical health as your mental health. So look, I know we go to the doctor to get our physical check. Let's go ahead and make sure we check our mental too. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of women would probably trust more men if they lead that way and say, he really cares about my mental health. Because think about it. Most women don't even bring that up in the conversation when they say that men don't lead. Well, when we add that to the caveat to the conversation about making sure that she's healthy as well as we're being healthy to make sure that we take care of each other, I think that changes the dynamic. And I think women will start trust men more whenever we lead, when we come to making sure that we're healthy mentally and physically. Does that make sense? And also get you a financial advisor too. Hey, just like you got a doctor for your money, get your doctor for your money too. You know what I'm saying?
That is the next question we get into it. Before we get into it, one thing I want to say is I personally understand how it is to be physical and verbally abused, because for a while, for us three, when I was with her for 3.5 years, I thought I was the problem. But no, she was the problem. I'm like, when I'm sitting there, and then next time I know I'm getting a freaking sandal slapped across the head for no reason. I thought I was the problem for years, and that is one thing I want to let everybody know. I don't care you woman or man, you're not the problem. You can fix the problem by leaving or whatever the case, therapy and so on. But it's getting to the last question of the night, and this is a juicy one. I want to say financial. That's why I told you to hang on to that thought loss, and I want to start with you. Financial, go for it.
You know, I worked in the bank for 20 years, man.
I didn't know
And
that.
yeah, I worked in the bank for 20 years, man. And when I tell you, I've seen what people do with their money. And I know why money fights occur, because people spend stuff that they really shouldn't be spending. You know what I'm saying? They don't have these conversations. But I will tell you this. If you don't have a direction for your financial future, you need to sit down with somebody who knows what they're doing. Get yourself a financial advisor. And also, that's the reason why you have to have conversations about your value system, what's important. You know, so if we're going to be here for a long time and we're going to be together, we got to make sure that we got to have enough money to carry us on through the rest of the way of life and leave a little something behind for the kids. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
What, man, you had to start asking yourself, what does your retirement look like? How, put a number on it. You know, you had to calculate for inflation, you know, lifestyle. What type of lifestyle do you want to live? You know, that type of thing. And based upon what you guys have set as far as your value system is, that's how you know you can plan financially accordingly. Because what happens is, if you eliminate the wild money spending and you have an agreement on what you're gonna do with the money, you ain't gonna have no problems. Now, the only problem you're gonna have is when somebody wants to buy something, they got that wild itch, and you got to be like, hey, you know, can I go ahead and let them slide this time? Or, you know, hey, I'm like, hey, you know, we got a plan. We got to stick to the plan. You know, if we buy these, you know, we ain't gonna be exactly what we want to be. But at the end of the day, as long as you have a roadmap on where you're going, you know, you have counselors for your banking, you have counselors for your marriage, you got counselors for your spiritual life. You know, the Bible speaks to stuff like that. You know, it's safety in the multitude of counsel. You know, and I think the more people you have on your team and you vet, then guess what? You'll have a more an opportunity for a greater success over time. So I highly suggest that you find somebody that you agree with, you know, financially, how in the direction of where your relationship is going, and make sure that you get a financial advisor so that way you can set everything up. Because at that point, it's an agreement, and it's not just he said or she said. You got John across the table and say, hey, look, guys, I did your financial outlook. I'm bringing Steven in. He's going to handle your tax situation. And this is what we came up with, and give him your prospectus and say, hey, look, this is where you are so far. And then you have a checkup every year and say, okay, y'all did great last year. You know, Jay, you picked up a new job. That this is the result of the money that you got for the new job. You guys are at least 3 or 4 years ahead of time. Those are the checkups that you need. That makes people feel like, hey, you really know what you're doing. Sometimes you have to leverage other people's intelligence to make you look good too. You see what I'm saying? And how you do that is making sure you get other people who are experts at what you want to have been done. And that's it. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. So, yeah, Grumman. Let me just chime in on that as well.
Okay, go for
You
it.
know, so yeah, one of the things that I agree with what Liz said. I mean, there's different ways to attack this, but one of the things that you find with women in general, whether they are right-minded or not, you know, one of you got to have, you know, a lot of times I don't think they're taught a lot of fiscal responsibility because they want things when they see it, and they don't look at the overall plan. You know, so you got to be willing to, first of all, before you marry a woman, you got to have that financial conversation, right? Like the stuff that's going on that we allow. When I say we, the people on these YouTube streets. One of the things that I have real major issues with all the men on these stupid panels. Every time a woman says that, you know, or even intimates that when she's in a relationship or a marriage, that her money's her money and a man's money is her money, and nobody checks on it, I blame that on the men, because no woman should be able to say that shit in front of you and get away with it. You know, we should never or let a woman, even if she's playing, or even, you know, women and men have been sharing responsibility financially for decades. Especially now that, you know, for the average man and woman, they both have to work. And that doesn't mean a woman's a slave. The man just has to understand that, there's more domestic duties he may have to do, which is not really that big of a deal. Because if you're the same kind of man, it's your house, you're not going to leave that up to one person to clean. You might get a day, you might divide certain things that you're not going to do and she's not going to. I mean, these just are simple things based on a conversation that you can fix, and we make those into mountains. But financially, if you're fiscally responsible, whoever you marry has to be willing to be taught if they don't know already. And if, because there's opportunity, there's instances where the woman is fiscally responsible and the man's not, especially who was a confirmed bachelor. He's spending money all over trying to get laid. So somehow, so you can fix that if a person is willing. But finances, me and my wife, we sit down every quarter and go over all our finances, all of everywhere, everything's at. Even down to the point if I have, I have like 8 IHG points and shit like that, because those are valuable, right? They don't expire, and I got all these kind of things. We go over it every quarter. We go over the insurance. We go over this. We go over that, just so she can keep it fresh in her mind, because I take care of it. I even have a flow chart for our family. Here's how the income comes in. Here's how it's processed, and here's how it goes out. It's like on one or two sheets, right? Just so you know where the money's coming from, and a lot of this shit's automatic. So this is what happens, whether I'm here or not. Don't mess it up because it's all set up for you. So I mean, so I'm more responsible, but my wife is there now because I had to train her. But my daughters, forget it. And whoever deals with them, man, you got to come correct. You got to, especially my oldest one. She's the tightest tightwad in the whole world, because she understands about debt. She understands about this, saving money, investing money, and all that kind of stuff. And she ain't gonna let you just come in and mess up her vibe, because she don't have no debt. Neither one of my daughters have any debt. And I told them, listen, there's a way you can go through your whole life without no debt if you do it right. So, so finances are a big deal, and you got to be kind of yoked with a person. So there's discriminators. I believe that if you enamored with a woman who has no fiscal responsibility or not, well, you can have fun with her, but don't ever marry her. Don't ever marry a woman who understands the value of a dollar and investing in it. Say, don't ever do it, because once you let her in, as soon as you sign that marriage contract, half of everything you have is hers. And all her debt becomes yours. So you can't be stupid about it. So it's very important. Vice versa too. So I'm just saying, yeah. So finance is very important. And we could go on and on. And it's kind of funny that we mention this. It'd be nice that if we had like a financial literacy show on the BMU network, something like that, with a couple of guys. You don't have to be professional, but some guys know what they're doing with money. I think the audience could benefit from just having different views on how people have gotten from where they are to where they are. And so I'm just kind of letting the cat out of the bag. I might try to set something like that up on one of my Mondays or something. But I think it'll be important. And whether people take heed or not, it's just good to hear. What do you do when a person's a teenager if you got money? What do you do if you have young children? So me and my wife, right? We're in a I don't know if we call golden years now, but we just bought a plot, right? For me and her to be buried, right? If something happens, we got a plot, right? Didn't cost that much money, but we probably should have done it 20 years ago. Because whatever it costs now, I could have probably got it for a fraction of that if we would have just did it 20 years ago. But nobody at 40 is thinking about the end times. You know what I'm saying? But
Right.
if I had to tell somebody, if you're married and you want to be there to death do you part, get the plot now.
Lock it in. That's right. I'm gonna be
Lock it
laying
in.
next to you. You're gonna be laying next to me. That means you can't go nowhere.
And it'll save you thousands of dollars.
That's
But
right.
those are the hard conversations that a lot of people don't want to have. Wills, living trusts, and all those other kind of things. And I tell people, even if you don't want to get married, but you decided you're going to live with somebody without the government being involved, you still need paperwork. You
That's
still
right.
need
Don't leave your best friend out there to dry.
exactly. I mean, you still need paperwork. So those are the kind of, and they all lead back to money, power of attorney. I mean, can you imagine if it was somebody for 10 years, they get really sick, you're 50 years old, she's 55, whatever it is, and you can't even visit her in the hospital because you're not married or not, you're not a next of kin. The hospitals don't have to honor the fact that y'all live together. They don't. And somebody from the outside is making decisions on a person that you love for the last 20 years. So you still need paperwork. And if, heaven forbid, if you have children and you don't have no paperwork, the state is not going to honor this bullshit that, if something happens to both of you, those kids are going to go right into the ether. So there's a lot of stuff that has to do with people just being responsible. And a lot of us just gloss over that because we don't talk about it enough. So anyway, that's just food for thought.
We're too busy watching the Real Housewives of this, that, and the other, instead of talking to the insurance man.
Yeah.
Paul, the floor is yours, buddy. You're the last one.
Well, obviously it's definitely, especially in today's world, it's I think maybe even a bigger responsibility now than generations past, because you have all these different financial instruments, ways of making money. I don't think our parents had nearly the complexities. But the one thing that I think they still had in common, and I still think that works today, is, again, a one-pot mentality. You having your own accounts and not knowing where the money is, and vice versa. I still think your oars financially need to row together. And again, it's not so much even about how much you're making. I think ultimately it's about, again, what your value system is. As the Bible says, where your heart is, your treasure will be there also. So if you value materialistic things, that could be difficult, especially if you try to get someone who is a bit of a spendthrift. Again, unequally yoked financial responsibilities, I think, is certainly something that can certainly doom a relationship. And you can put that stuff off on the back burner. But again, once you have, if you do get married, you have children, you buy a home and whatnot, all the things that you have to be responsible for, and even some of the things that our parents thought about. Now, I'll be honest with you, the plot thing, I've never heard of anybody taking proactive action, especially in their youth.
That's true.
In their young age, to say, hey, look, let's get plot. The will, yes. All right, let's get the will. We'll take care of that, or the end of life stuff. That's fine. Grave stones and all that, or listing the plots. That's usually not in the equation. Now, if you're military basically gives you one. Right. And if your wife dies, then she basically, if not next to you, they'll just put her thing right on top of yours. That's usually how
you get two wives. If you're a military person, you get two wives and probably two husbands.
Yeah.
My father got two wives. They're both married. They're both buried on top in his plot as a veteran.
Exactly. Yeah. They just take up
them bunk beds, don't they?
Exactly. Bunk beds.
I wonder if they argue who goes first.
Yeah.
I don't know. But that's the thing. Just my mindset when it comes to marriage. Like I said, I intentionally say that I'm in my 28th year. And I say that because, again, I take every year 1 year at a time. I'm in year 28. And for whatever reason, what our pain just dropped is the first time I'm hearing it. And so, so again, it feels like you just made me feel like I'm in year one, because that's something that, we're older. We're both in our 50s. Not afraid to ashamed to admit that, but yeah, that's a real combo. That's writing that down. Noted. Now I may go to her and she'd be like, "What you been listening to?" But yeah, I gotta bring it up. Yeah, this is something we may want to consider, because, like you said, or trying to get our kids or whomever to pay for something like that down the line. It could be more expensive down the line. So again, end of life planning is definitely something that's important. So again, I may not get as nuanced in terms of the seeing the financial, working with all the instruments, the financial planner every year, those sort of things. But I do think that, again, there has to be one transparency, and again, there has to be some harmony when it comes to, again, values. If you're one who's like, look, my kids, they only wear the high end stuff, whatever, but you trying to buy stuff from Walmart or Costco or something like that, yeah, that's going to be a problem. In fact, I've seen shows. I think Steve Harvey did a show one time where the wife was like, her kids only wear designer stuff. But the father's like, look, we trying to buy a house, we trying to get stuff, but she wants to spend money on, that's not going to last. So yeah, it's very important. Now, how you get there, the technical, the nuance in terms of the instruments that you use to build a financial legacy and something for the future, that may be, different per individual. Debt, I don't mind as much depending on what it's what it's for.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, if you just because a sister, she may have some college debt or something like that, but she's in something, I don't think that's necessarily a deal breaker. But if she got $100,000 of debt and she majored in liberal arts, that could be problematic. You know what I mean? So again, it's so again, all those conversations, the nuance has to be had to get a better picture of, okay, what the mindset is and where this person's going, and again, can I vibe with that, or if I decide to take it on? Because look, if you got, if you got money like that, she can have $100,000 there. If you got money like that, it's like, Kevin Samuels is like, come on, that's nothing. I'll take care of that or whatever. But if you can be showing that you can be a wife, then we can. The money isn't necessarily going to be the deal breaker. But again, I think that's something that definitely has to be, and to Laws's point, getting a third party in there, someone who can look at the situation objectively versus emotionally. Because again, with finances, again, you talk about very emotional decisions. I think that can certainly be a useful tool to help certainly couples, whether you're dating or if you're in your marriage, that can certainly help you navigate those waters effectively. But older generations, they were like, look, they put the money that they earn for the day, they put it on the table. They'd be like, all right, where's it going? That's sustained a lot of people. So as long as you have that mindset, the details, I think you can flesh out or get the people to help you flesh it out.
And that's said really well, because we don't think of that when we get into the relationship. Can we afford this? Can we do this? A lot of young couples jump right into it. I know I did sometimes, and I put myself in a financial jam, and I went crawling back to home. So make sure if you have good communication, have these conversations now with your loved one, because you don't have that problem later. So really fast, so we'll finish up. Final thoughts, guys?
Yeah, man. Paul, in the South, man, that's what we do, man. We buy plots down here, man. Don't feel bad. I got one.
My kinfolk for the South too, but yeah, I've never heard that. But I said I know a couple folks from military, so I knew that because that's how that was done. And like I said, they just they literally dig it up, drop the spouse, the wife right on top there, and just got to keep it moving. But
I never heard of that personally, to be honest with you. I'm not saying it's not. I never heard.
My grandmother's buried next to my grandfather, and he was in the Army, so she's right there with him, next to him.
Yeah.
So my final thought, just on the plot thing, it's purely economics, because we know how things appreciate, right? Because it's a piece of land, right?
Right.
So we're 60. We're in our 60s. But if we would have did the same thing when we were in our 40s, and you're right, Mr. Bennett, nobody's thinking about that stuff.
Nah.
But it probably would have cost us half what it's costing us now.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And that's the only reason why I said you ain't really, because these like the uncomfortable conversations, because you're talking about the afterlife. But the truth of the matter is, when you're right in the beginning, they do say till death do you part. So the whole deal is, when you're married, you got to be thinking about, what about the end game? But you don't dwell on it.
So no cremation for you guys.
No, you know what? But that's fine. But no, we didn't plan on that. But no, it's not. It's not. But that's cool. But And I wouldn't have any problem with that. Only thing I would wonder is will my spirit feel the heat? You know, that's the only thing I'm scared. When I be burning, you know, I'm dead. But if I, you know, do I feel this shit or
You're
not?
in the wrong place, man. It's like, whoa, wait a minute, wait.
They lied. It's hot.
It's hot as hell. My soul is burning like hell.
I'm not
You
gonna
know,
lie to you guys. That part of the conversation, like we should get, burials, all this stuff, creeps the crap out of me. I always have, I always will.
That's grown man business, man. That's
I know.
grown man
I know.
business.
Did we ever have a conversation on that on the gray area? As far
No.
as that might be a topic, because I don't know.
There you go.
I don't know in Greece how they do it. Typically people are buried or cremated or whatever, but that might be a combo to have on an upcoming gray area death.
I think I'll be sick that day.
No. You got to talk about it, play.
That's a good one. I think that's a good.
There you go. Write it down. Write it down.
Yes, I got it.
So schedule update, guys. For right now, Thursdays are gonna be our nights. I was wondering, you guys, how you think about Thursday versus Wednesdays?
That's pretty good for me. So I don't feel like I'm doubling up, because I know, like I said, I got the sports show and I'm just kind of running. Just
I need some space between Tuesday and Monday. You know what I'm saying? I want to be on every day of the week. You know what I'm saying?
So you guys like Thursday? You saying?
Thursday probably be better.
Thursday.
Then we got Friday too. We got the barbershop, so you know how that goes.
Tomorrow. That should be interesting.
Okay, let's keep it on Thursday for now, and we'll go from there, because I want to work on your schedules too, guys. So, schedule update. This Saturday, we are talking about Rambo versus Terminator, Stallone versus Schwarzenegger. Who is the better actor?
Oh, jeez.
This is going to be a good one. And if I could get a hold of our fellow BMU member, JT, I've been trying to get a collab with him of the history of rap music. I've been trying to deal with him. And the following Saturday, we're doing Bruce Lee versus Jackie Chan's The Legend of the Martial Arts Cinema. So that is going to be another good one.
Make sure y'all throw Jet Li in there too, man. You know, throw Jet in there, man.
Yeah,
Well, let me ask you, now that we're talking about it, wasn't Jet Li's best movie, I think, when he did Lethal Weapon 4?
Yeah, man.
No, you don't think so?
Fist the Legend, I think, was my favorite one. But
okay.
Yeah,
But he was awesome in that, though. He was just awesome, sinister in that damn movie, man. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, for sure.
Really fast, no
Definitely.
spoilers. I'll let you know. I know people give crap at Jackie Chan for doing the Karate Kid movie, but it's not a bad movie if you actually watch it.
I love that movie, man. I thought that was pretty damn
Butcher the
good.
shit out of it. In the,
I don't
liked
remember
it.
that. I thought, yeah.
Yep. So
I
except
thought it
that,
was very well done.
guys, as always, we got Lost over here. Forget, I'm not gonna do that. Lost, Paul, and Chef Payne. And as always, I am Grooming Reviews, Ghost of Sparta. Stay fresh, stay safe, and I'll see you guys next time.
Have a great way. I'll see you guys tomorrow.